So you've got a cheap amp and you think it sounds like garbage, but we're here to tell you today that you can make it sound great, even if you're stuck with one of the least expensive amps on the market. You can still make it sound good. Randy, one of our co-workers, is constantly buying guitars on Craigslist, and oftentimes, like, the guitars he gets will be cheaper because he buys them to work on, and he gets amps with them. So we've got 3 of the most common, inexpensive amps here today, and we're gonna dial in some really good tones for you.
A lot of these amps you can actually, I think if you bought them used, you get them for under $100,
yeah,
which is crazy. And the thing is a lot of times if you maybe buy a starter pack guitar or something like that, you might get one of these amps.
For sure.
Or if maybe you have a nicer guitar, but you want to kind of cheap out on the amp a little bit, go for something more affordable, which is totally okay, especially if you're just playing at home, you might end up with one of these as well. So what we have is a FRONTMAN 10G, we have a PEAVEY 15.8, and a Line 6 Spider 415. So these two both have 8-inch speakers. This one actually has a 6-inch speaker, which is pretty small.
All right, and let me just tell you, one of the best clean tones I've ever heard on guitar anywhere was from this jazz cat who was in this guitar store one time. I was like, holy crap, what is he playing through? I looked over there and it was a FRONTMAN 25R. He's just a really good player.
Yeah.
So no matter what you have, you can dial in a really nice tone that you will like.
Absolutely. So what we're gonna show you today is how you can dial in a pretty decent tone on one of these more affordable amps.
Probably the biggest tip right off the bat I have for you is, well, people are always asking, what pedal should I buy, right? Get a reverb pedal. It'll make a small amp sound a lot better. The first 2 amps we're gonna go through, the FRONTMAN and the PEAVEY range, don't have reverb on them, so it's just a way to kind of lushen up the sound and make it a little more enjoyable experience.
That's right.
So here is the FRONTMAN, completely dry, and I've intentionally set up kind of a not great tone with this. So first thing I'm gonna do is turn the reverb on. And this is just a TC Electronic Hall of Fame reverb with some plate on it. Right, so it makes it a little wetter. Now, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but this tone lends itself to my next point. Only use the amount of gain necessary to get the job done. And this is supposed to be a clean tone. You can hear it's not quite clean, right? So what I'm gonna do is back off on the volume, which in this case, on the clean channel, is the amount of drive you get, right?
Right.
Already cleaner, a little bit more jazzy. So whether you're going for high gain sound or a clean sound, only use the amount of gain necessary to get things done. Because if you just gain out, like dime the gain, which we'll do here in a second, on an amp, you're probably using more than you need. It's probably making things sound a little flabby. Use moderate settings is my next tip. So if you're maxing out, whether it's the gain, the treble, the bass, it's gonna, especially with smaller speakers and smaller wattage amps, it's gonna really make it sound flabby or like, just like something's not right. So I have the treble and the bass set to 10 on here, so I'm just gonna back off both of those to around 8.
Okay.
And kind of go from there. And often what I'll do is I'll turn like the bass all the way down, bring it up until it starts to sound good, and that's ended up on 7 for me. So same thing with the treble. Just under 7 again. For veteran playing, I think that's a pretty good tone.
A common thing that people will do is with something like a 6-inch speaker, you're gonna feel like it's lacking oomph, right? It's not gonna have a ton of low end or bass. So people tend to overcompensate with too much bass, but it actually takes away from the fidelity and like the, I guess, articulation and stuff like that. So don't go crazy with the bass on a smaller speaker. A smaller speaker is gonna sound like a smaller speaker, and that's perfectly okay.
It's funny, it seems like the nicer the amps get, the less bass I have to use in general. I don't know why. So maybe it's because of the higher wattage and bigger speakers.
It's possible.
The smallest speaker I've ever owned on an amp is 12 inches, so.
Okay. Should we maybe hear this thing set up with maybe some gain?
Sure, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna max out the bass and the treble for that. It's a little bit shrill to me. The gain is a little bit too much gain too.
I would say so.
So remember what I said about using only as much gain as you absolutely need? That sounds pretty, even that. Anything past that, I get kind of diminishing returns, so I ended up on 8 for like some really heavy stuff. And it's still really blazing treble-wise, right?
There's a lot there, yeah.
Take it down to where it's just nothing. on 5 now. And take the bass out. Like it sounded like the bass was only like on 5 to me, but it was cranked. And like I get kind of diminishing returns after 7.5. So that's probably where I would leave it.
Nice.
Let's see what it sounds like with
That
circles.
sounds good to me. Do you have a tuner?
I do on my phone.
Thank you.
Nice.
So obviously the reverb immediately just makes that sound. That sounds good to me. I would say it sounds a little too mid-rangey,
Yeah.
a little bit honky.
Can't do anything
The
about
problem
that.
is an amp like this doesn't have a mid-range control. And so I kind of can't do a lot about that.
Yeah.
The honkiness actually a lot of times comes from smaller speakers.
Yeah.
It's very common that. And so I don't know what's coming through necessarily on your end, coming through that microphone.
Yeah.
But to me it sounds a little too honky. Can't do much about it. But the pretty moderate EQ settings, you have it on 7, treble. I would probably bump the treble up, Nate, if you wouldn't mind, maybe to like 7-ish.
7? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, then for me. I would say that sounds pretty good. Again, a little bit honky, but not that bad.
All right, next amp. Andrew, why don't you walk us through the PEAVEY. PEAVEY
Okay.
range 15.8.
So this is an older amp, but it's pretty common. I mean, I used to see these probably back in the day a little bit more. You don't see them as much these days. Usually I see Fenders and I see Line 6. Those are kind of the two main ones that I see. But these PEAVEYs were everywhere, especially like the 90s and the early 2000s. And when I was first trading guitars and doing stuff like that, almost everybody I knew had something similar to this. This, spoiler, is my favorite sounding amp of the 3.
It's the best sounding amp of the 3 to me as well.
Yeah. Okay. So should we start with maybe something that, out of the box, how it might sound, a little bit crazier on the lows and mids and highs. So this one has a mid control, which is really nice.
Sounds a lot bigger right away. I don't know what it sounds like through that microphone, but it sounds a lot bigger right away. And that just goes to show you bigger speakers with more air make it sound more bassy and full. There's a modern and a vintage. Because it sounds a little harsher.
Yeah.
First of all, I think there's too much gain on it, even for the kind of stuff I was playing, because I haven't maxed. That already sounds better to me.
It does.
I'm on about 6. I have it on the vintage right now, which is, it sounded to me like it just gave it a mid boost. So I'll turn the mids down a little bit. See how much we actually need. I don't see a lot of difference beyond that. It just gets a little flabbier, so it's like on like 4. And if you wanted to flip to the modern, obviously it needs a little more mids and a little bit more highs.
Okay, so we have pretty moderate settings going on there, right?
Yeah.
So I would say the highs, it might be a little bit too much highs. So I'd maybe bring the highs down a touch. I'd probably bring the mids down as well. Maybe to 4, yeah. And then the lows, I would probably bump them to 5 maybe.
Okay.
So it's getting somewhere. I would say probably I would put more volume, actually. I would probably turn it up a little bit louder. Okay. And some of these amps have a master volume. So if you can bring the regular volume up, you'll get a little bit more compression out of the amp, but the master volume keeps it kind of in check.
Started sounding pretty good in the room.
So it's pretty spanky, actually.
Yeah, it started to sound pretty good in the room.
Surprisingly pretty good. So obviously that's a very bright tone, but that's because of the single coils.
And like, use your guitar knob too to dial in a good tone. If that's bright for you, but you need it for some parts, just back off on
Back
your
off
tone
on the
knob.
tone knob, absolutely. Do you want to hear the cleans maybe through the
Yeah, let's
PRS
do
there?
that. Cool. That's, for the price, that's one of the better practice amps I've played through.
Sounds really good. I would say if I was dialing that in, I'd maybe drop some lows a little bit, but other than that, to me, that sounds amazing.
Cool. On to the last one, and this brings up one of my most pet peeve kind of points about guitar practice amps, and that's do not rely on presets.
Right.
I cannot think of one like multi-effects unit, modeling amp, anything like that, inexpensive or very expensive that I've owned, where I like the presets. I always end up having to dial in just what I want from the ground up. And this one, I don't think it comes with presets, but the Line 6 Spider stuff, often a lot of them do come with presets. People are like, this amp sounds like garbage. I'm like, we're using a preset, man. I would like a little more high end and a little less low end.
Okay.
To bring the gain down a little bit and keep the volume.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds pretty good to me.
Yep.
So as far as now dialing in a gainier tone on this, we actually have to change, I believe there's 4 channels on it. So it's got like normal, crunch, what is it? Metal and insane. We're gonna leave the insane.
I almost, yeah, this comes back to the gain moderation thing. Like, I like heavy music, I like metal. But on Line 6 Spider amps, I almost never use the insane channel. I always just put up the gain a little more on the metal channel,
Right.
and it seems to give me what I need.
Right. So for this one, do you want to go with crunch or do you want to go with metal?
Let's go with metal.
Okay.
Now, could you, where's the gain at? I'm curious on that.
Drive right there. So the gain here's at 9. I have it very low.
Oh, just crank it. Pour it wide open.
Okay.
That's a classic example of what happens when you put too much gain on
Too
it.
much.
And oftentimes, like especially when you're recording in the studio, that like layering multiple guitars in with a sound like that is one of the keys to getting a really fat sound. Instead of relying on gain, I need more gain to fatten up my sound.
But you could probably hear, as I rolled back that drive, it opened way up.
Yeah.
Right? Like the tone really opened up, and maybe for your playing, maybe it wasn't quite enough gain, but it sounded way, way better.
Yeah.
For the listener, especially.
Let's try this one with some singles. Yeah?
Sounds good.
Now, I just want to hear the exact same tone that we had on singles. Can you back up your tone to like 6 or 7?
Yeah.
I think that sounds good.
Okay. Okay, let's check it out clean though.
Cool.
Okay. Okay, so I just set the amp basically back to it being very flat across the board. I just wanted to make sure I had enough volume, but. So immediately that sounds, again, very honky, a little bit too much mid-range and not enough treble. So I'm gonna back off on the mid-range. I'm gonna put the mid-range, I'm gonna put it all the way back to like 9 o'clock. And then I'm going to turn the treble up all the way to like 3 o'clock and bring the bass back a little bit, bring the volume up a little bit more. So still, it sounds really almost honky to me. I guess when you go to the neck
When you
pickup,
go to the neck
it
pickup,
immediately
sounds
does sound
good, yeah.
better. Okay, well that's kind of those 3. Do we want to maybe go through what this might sound like on a different guitar, or what do you think?
Yeah, let's do just a couple examples on a cheap guitar. So you guys are like, oh, you're playing expensive guitars. Again, it doesn't matter that much. I'm gonna go grab a Squire.
Okay.
All right, this is the exact same settings on this Spider that Andrew just had his guitar plugged into. Let me hop over to the PEAVEY and let you hear what that was.
Sounds good.
And one more. All right, so those are the tips for making your inexpensive or small amp sound good. So in summary, the first thing is use gain in moderation.
Yeah. Another thing you want to do is when you're setting up that more affordable amp is set the EQ very flat.
Cool. Also, if you don't have a reverb on your amp, look on Craigslist, find a reverb pedal for, 30 or 40 bucks. It can help a lot.
Some people tend to give up on their amps way too soon, especially when they're more affordable, but you need to remember that even with expensive amps, sometimes there's just one sweet spot and you just have to go out and find it,
You have to
right?
dial it in, yeah. If there are any tips that we left out or we didn't cover that you have for dialing in great tones on small or inexpensive amps, let us know in the comments below.
And make sure you give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube as well. We'll see you guys next time.
And just for comparison's sake, here is a little clip of the least expensive tube amp that we could find in case you want to compare them. And so if you want to spend the extra money for that, you can. So it's just a Blues Junior.